The great meeting hall floated in space like a jewel among the stars. It was called Serenity's Grace, and it was the most beautiful station in the known galaxy. Every wall was made of crystal that caught the light of distant suns. Every floor was polished until it shined like a mirror. This was where the conclave of enlightened species met to discuss the important matters of the universe. Ambassador Vethril stood at the center of the hall. She was an Allery, a being with skin so thin you could almost see through it. She had 4 arms, each one long and delicate, like the branch of a willow tree. Her people believed they were the most civilized species in the galaxy. They looked down on everyone else, but they saved their greatest contempt for the newcomers. The humans. "We have received a transmission," Vethril announced to the assembled delegates. Her voice was soft but carried through the entire chamber. "It comes from a small world on the edge of explored space. A human colony." She waved one of her hands, and a hologram appeared in the center of the room. It showed a woman with blood on her face. Behind her, there were explosions and screaming. The woman spoke with desperation in her voice. "This is Director Sarah Chun of Nova Hope Colony. We are under attack by unknown forces. We have over 8,000 civilians here, including 2,000 children. Please, we need help. We cannot hold much longer. Please, anyone who can hear this, help us." The message ended. For a moment, the hall was silent. Then Trade Minister Gorvax began to laugh. Gorvax was a Kreth, an insect-like creature with hard shell covering his body and sharp mandibles that clicked when he spoke. His people controlled most of the trade routes in the galaxy. They were rich beyond measure and proud beyond reason. "Humans," Gorvax said, his mandibles clicking with amusement. "They have been traveling in space for only 60 years. 60. My children accomplish more before they learn to walk. And now they cry for help like newborns." Other delegates joined in the laughter. The Velith ambassador, a creature made of living jelly that floated in a special gravity field, wobbled with delight. They chose to live on that planet themselves. A world with gravity that would crush most species. Air that burns the lungs. They knew the dangers. "The attackers have been identified," said a small voice from the intelligence section. "They are Rethkari slavers. They likely want the humans for labor in their mining operations." This news did not change the mood in the room. If anything, it made the delegates more dismissive. The Rethkari were known throughout the galaxy as raiders and slavers. They were brutal and cruel, but they only attacked weak targets. The fact that they had chosen this human colony proved, in the minds of the Conclave, that humans were indeed weak. Ambassador Vethril raised one of her delicate hands. The laughter slowly died down. "We warned the humans not to expand beyond their protected territory," she said. "We told them they were not ready for the dangers of the galaxy. They ignored our advice. They thought they knew better than species who have traveled among the stars for thousands of years." She paused, letting her words sink in. "This is the natural result of a primitive species trying to do too much too fast. We cannot rescue every foolish colony that gets itself into trouble. It would set a bad example." A young diplomat near the back of the room raised his hand nervously. "Should we not at least respond to their message? Perhaps send a small force to know." Vethril cut him off. Her voice was cold. "Let the Deathworlders solve their own problems. They are so proud of their violent nature. Let them use it now." The word Deathworlders echoed through the chamber. It was what the Conclave called humans and other species that came from dangerous planets. Earth was considered one of the most hostile worlds ever discovered. It had extreme temperatures, dangerous predators, poisonous plants, and natural disasters that could kill millions. The fact that humans had survived on such a world was seen not as a sign of strength, but as evidence of their primitive and violent nature. To the Conclave, Deathworlder was an insult. It meant savage. It meant uncivilized. It meant not worth saving. "Perhaps this experience will teach them humility," said the Velith ambassador. "They have been too proud since they first achieved space travel, acting as if they were our equals. This will remind them of their place." There were murmurs of agreement throughout the chamber. Far away, on the planet called Nova Hope, Director Sarah Chun sent her message again. And again. And again. She did not know that the most powerful beings in the galaxy had received her words. She did not know they had laughed and turned away. She only knew that her people were dying, that children were hiding in bunkers while monsters burned their homes, that every hour brought more death, more fear, more desperation. But what the Conclave did not know, what they had never bothered to learn in all their wisdom and superiority, was that the message was not just drifting through empty space, 12 light years away. In a star system the Conclave considered unimportant, the message was being received. It was being heard by beings who did not laugh at the suffering of others, by beings who had learned, through millions of years of survival on a deadly world, that you never abandon your own. The humans of Earth had heard the cry for help, and they were already responding. In the halls of power, in secret military bases, in shipyards hidden from alien sensors, orders were being given. Engines were warming up. Weapons were being loaded. Soldiers were saying goodbye to their families. The galaxy had made a mistake. The Conclave had looked at humanity and seen only primitives from a dangerous world. They had seen violence and assumed it meant savagery. They had seen struggle and assumed it meant weakness. They had not understood what it truly meant to be. Deathworlder. It meant that you knew how to fight. It meant that you never gave up. It meant that you protected your family, no matter the cost. The beacon continued its desperate call into the void. The Conclave had dismissed it as the cries of primitives not worth saving. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The listening station floated in the darkness beyond Mars. It was called Vigilant Ear, and its only purpose was to catch signals from deep space. Most days were quiet. Most days brought nothing but the whisper of distant stars. This was not most days. Petty Officer Marcus Webb was drinking his third cup of coffee when the alarm sounded. He nearly dropped the cup. In 6 years of service, he had never heard that alarm. It meant an emergency transmission. A human emergency transmission. He read the words on his screen, and his blood turned cold. 8,000 civilians. 2,000 children. Under attack. Please help. Within 2 minutes, the message had reached Commander Lisa Okonkwo. Within 5 minutes, it was being read in Geneva, at the headquarters of Solcom, the Solar Command of the Terran Navy. Within 10 minutes, it was on the desk of Fleet Admiral James Morrison. They called him Ironside. He was 63 years old, with gray hair and eyes that had seen too much death. He had commanded the defense of Mars during the Ceres insurrection. He had buried his own daughter after the Titan Station disaster. He knew the weight of command. He knew the cost of war. He read the transcript twice. Then he picked up the red phone on his desk. This phone connected directly to Secretary General Nakamura, the leader of the United Earth Council. "How far away is this colony?" she asked. 31 light years, ma'am." "Can we reach them in time?" Morrison looked at the tactical display on his wall. It showed the positions of every ship in the Terran Navy, not the official Navy that the Conclave knew about. The real Navy. The one that humanity had been building in secret for 30 years. The Conclave thought humans had only a handful of defensive ships, old vessels with outdated weapons. They believed this because humanity had let them believe it. Every inspection, every diplomatic visit, every intelligence report had confirmed this lie. The truth was very different. Hidden in asteroid fields, concealed in the shadow of moons, disguised as mining platforms and research stations. Humanity had built a fleet unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. 147 warships, carriers that could launch hundreds of fighters, battlecruisers with guns that could crack planets, destroyers that move like wolves hunting in packs. All of it built without the Conclave knowing. All of it waiting for the day when humanity would need to defend itself. That day had come. "If we push the engines beyond safe limits," Morrison said slowly, "we might reach them in time. It will be close." There was silence on the line. Then Secretary General Nakamura spoke, and her voice was firm. "Admiral, there are children on that colony." "I know, ma'am." "Then why are we still talking?" Morrison smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. He pressed the button for fleet-wide broadcast. "All commands, this is Solcom Actual. Emergency Protocol Omega. Rally Point, Sol Kepler Transit Corridor. Full combat deployment. This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill." Across the solar system, the response was immediate. In Earth's orbital shipyards, mechanics dropped their tools and ran for their stations. On Europa, pilots sprinted to their fires. On Titan, loading crews worked at triple speed to fill magazines with ammunition. In the asteroid belt, ships that had pretended to be mining vessels shed their disguises and revealed the weapons hidden beneath. 147 ships broke from their hiding places. They moved with precision that came from years of secret training. Carriers moved to the center of the formation. Battlecruisers took positions on the flanks. Destroyers ranged ahead, sensors scanning for any threat. At the heart of the fleet was the TNS Retribution. She was Admiral Morrison's flagship, and she was built for one purpose: war. 2 kilometers of dark metal and bristling weapons. No elegant curves. No artistic design. Just armor thick enough to stop plasma fire and guns, big enough to destroy cities. Morrison stood on the bridge as the fleet assembled. Around him, his crew worked in focused silence. These were not conscripts or volunteers. These were professionals who had trained their entire lives for this moment. "Fleet assembly complete, Admiral," reported his second-in-command. "All ships reporting ready for transit." Morrison nodded. He activated the fleet-wide channel one more time. "This is Admiral Morrison. I want to speak to you before we make the jump." He paused, gathering his thoughts. 60 years ago, we discovered we were not alone in the universe. We found the Conclave, and we thought we had found friends. We were wrong. They looked at us and saw primitives. They called us Deathworlders and meant it as an insult. They limited our expansion, controlled our trade, and treated us like children who could not be trusted. His voice hardened. Today, 8,000 of our people are fighting for their lives. They sent a message begging for help, and the Conclave laughed. They decided that human lives were not worth saving. They were wrong about that too. On every ship, crew members stopped what they were doing to listen. We are going to show the galaxy what it means to be human. We are going to show them what happens when you threaten our family. We are going to prove that the Conclave made the biggest mistake in their long history when they ignored that distress beacon. Morrison looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, children were hiding in bunkers, waiting to learn if they would live or die. All ships engage faster than light drives. Let's go bring our people home. The stars blurred as 147 ships jumped to faster than light speed. The Armada vanished from the solar system, racing across the void toward a small colony called Nova Hope. The Conclave had no idea they were coming. The Rethkari, slavers, had no idea they were coming. But they would learn soon enough. The wolves were coming, and they were very, very hungry. Nova Hope was burning. Director Sarah Chun pressed her back against an overturned cargo container and tried to catch her breath. Her hands were bleeding. Her face was covered in dust and smoke. The pulse rifle in her grip was almost out of charge. Around her, the last defenders of Nova Hope held their positions. 47 people. Most of them had never fired a weapon before this day. They were farmers who grew food in hydroponic domes, scientists who studied alien plants and rocks, teachers who taught children how to read and count, engineers who kept the colony systems running. Now they were soldiers. They had no choice. Behind them was the central bunker. Inside that bunker were 2,000 children and hundreds of wounded colonists who could no longer fight. Every defender knew what would happen if they failed. The Rethkari did not come to kill. Kill. They came to capture, to enslave. The children would be taken to work in mines on distant worlds. They would never see their families again. That knowledge gave the defenders strength they did not know they had. The Rethkari had attacked 6 hours ago. 12 ships had descended from the sky, carrying nearly 2,000 raiders. The reptilian slavers had expected easy prey. A soft colony full of scientists and farmers. No military. No real weapons. A simple raid. They had been very wrong. Commander Zethkar of the Rethkari Dominion watched the battle from his ship in orbit. His scales were normally a proud green color. Now they had faded to an angry gray. This was supposed to be simple. This was supposed to be easy. Instead, his warriors were dying. 200 casualties in 6 hours. 200 of his best fighters killed by farmers and teachers. It was impossible. It was humiliating. Why won't they break? He hissed to his lieutenant. They are Deathworlders, Commander. From a heavy gravity world with a poisonous atmosphere. They are durable. Durable. The word did not begin to describe what Zethkar had witnessed. He had watched a human scientist charge his warriors with nothing but a mining laser. The man had been 50 years old, gray-haired, with gentle hands more used to holding research equipment than weapons. He had killed 4 Rethkari warriors before they finally brought him down. He had died, laughing. He had watched a human grandmother organize the evacuation of children, calmly directing frightened little ones to safety while plasma fire exploded around her. Then she had picked up a weapon and returned to the battle line. She was still fighting. He had watched 2 teenage humans use their knowledge of the colony's tunnel system to sneak behind Rethkari positions. They had destroyed 2 landing craft before disappearing back into the shadows. His warriors now feared the tunnels more than open combat. On the ground, Maria Gonzalez ducked as plasma fire scorched the wall above her head. She was 62 years old. She had come to Nova Hope to study alien flowers. Her grandchildren were in the bunker behind her. "How's your ammo?" asked the young man next to her. His name was Thomas. He had been an engineer until this morning. "Almost out." "You?" "Same." They looked at each other. They both knew what that meant. "It's been an honor," Thomas said simply. Maria nodded. "Tell my grandchildren I love them, if I don't get the chance." A roar of engines made them both look up. More Rethkari landing craft were descending. Fresh troops to replace the ones the colonists had killed. In the bunker, 2,000 children huddled in darkness. The youngest were only 3 years old. They did not understand what was happening. They only knew that there were loud noises outside, and their parents looked scared. The older children understood more. They knew that monsters had come from the sky. They knew that the adults were fighting to protect them. Little Emma Morrison, age 9, held her younger brother's hand. She had been named after a distant relative, some admiral she had never met. She wondered if her parents were still alive. She wondered if anyone would save them. Back on his ship, Commander Zethkar made a decision. He had lost too many warriors. This raid had already cost more than any slaves could be worth. It was time to end this. "Deploy orbital bombardment," he ordered. "Destroy everything outside the bunker. We will dig the survivors out of the rubble. His weapons officer hesitated. Commander, that will kill most of the colony. The slave yield will be minimal. I don't care about yield anymore. I want this over. The first kinetic strike fell from orbit. It hit the western district of the colony, vaporizing the medical center in an instant. Dr. Michael Torres's last stand had been there. Now there was only a crater. The second strike destroyed the hydroponic domes. Food for 1,000 families, gone in a flash of light. The third strike was aimed at the eastern defense line, where Director Chun and the last defenders waited for death. But the third strike never came in orbit. Zefkar's sensors suddenly screamed warnings. His weapons officer turned pale. Commander, contacts emerging from faster-than-light travel. Many contacts. How many? The weapons officer's voice trembled. 100. 147, Commander. Warship signatures. Configuration unknown. Zefkar stared at his screen. The sensor display was filled with red dots. More ships than he had ever seen in one place. More firepower than his entire raiding fleet could hope to match, and they were coming fast. So impossibly fast. What are they? His lieutenant whispered .z, ETH single quotes KAR, felt something he had not experienced in 40 years of raiding. Something cold in his stomach. Something ancient and primal. Fear. Human ships, he said. They're reinforcements. That's impossible. Humans don't have ships like that. The Conclave reports say. The Conclave reports were wrong. On the ground, Director Chun saw the new lights in the sky. She did not know what they were. She only knew that something had changed. The bombardment had stopped. The Rethkari were no longer advancing. She dared to hope. In her bunker, little Emma Morrison saw adults crying. But they were not sad tears. They were something else. Something she had never seen before. They were tears of relief. Help had come. Admiral Morrison stood on the bridge of the Retribution and studied the tactical display. His fleet had dropped out of faster-than-light speed at the edge of the Kepler system. Now they were racing toward the colony world at maximum acceleration. The journey had taken 18 hours. 18 hours of waiting. 18 hours of hoping they would not be too late. During that time, the crew had prepared for battle. Weapons had been checked and rechecked. Damage control teams had drilled until they could repair a hull breach in their sleep. Medical teams had readied for mass casualties. But they had also done something else. They had watched every transmission from Nova Hope. Every desperate plea. Every report of casualties. Every name of every person who had died defending their home. The bridge was quiet now. But Morrison could feel the anger in his crew. It was not the hot rage that made people do stupid things. It was cold. It was patient. It was the anger of people who had watched others suffer and could do nothing but wait. Now the waiting was over. Status report. Morrison said calmly. 12 hostile vessels in orbit around the colony, replied his sensor officer. Configuration matches Rithkari slave raiders. They appear to be. Admiral, they're running. Hard burn toward the outer system. Running? Morrison raised an eyebrow. Yes, sir. They saw us come out of FTL and immediately began retreat maneuvers. The Admiral nodded slowly. The Rethkari had a reputation throughout the galaxy. They were cruel. They were brutal. But they were also cowards. They attacked only the weak. They fled from anything that could fight back. They had never encountered anything like the Terran Navy. Can they reach FTL distance before we catch them? No, sir. Not at our current acceleration. We'll have weapons range in 11 minutes. Morrison considered his options. The rulebook said he should demand surrender. Give the enemy a chance to yield. Follow proper protocols. But Morrison had watched the transmissions from Nova Hope. He had seen the burning colony. He had heard the screams of children. He had read the names of the dead. "Open a channel," he ordered. "All frequencies. I want them to hear this. Channel open, Admiral. Rethkari vessels. This is Admiral James Morrison of the Terran Navy." His voice was flat, emotionless, the voice of a man who had already made his decision. "You have attacked a human colony. You have killed human civilians. You have threatened human children." He let each sentence land like a hammer. "You will stop your engines. You will lower your shields. You will prepare to be boarded. If you surrender, you will be treated as prisoners under Earth law. If you do not surrender—" He paused. On the display, he could see the colony below, the bunker where thousands waited, the craters where people had died. "If you do not surrender, there will be no mercy, no negotiation, no escape. You have 90 seconds to decide." The response came in 50 seconds. But it was not a surrender. It was a barrage of missiles. The Rethkari had launched everything they had at the approaching fleet. Dozens of warheads streaked through space toward the Terran ships. Morrison did not blink. Point defense. Then, weapons free. The Retribution's defensive systems came alive. Lasers and small cannons tracked the incoming missiles with computer precision. One by one, the warheads exploded far from their targets. The fleet flew through the expanding clouds of debris without slowing down. "All missiles destroyed, Admiral. No damage to any ship." "Good. Now show them what human weapons can do." The battle cruisers opened fire. The Conclave had always dismissed human weapons as primitive. They preferred elegant plasma arrays and graviton beams, weapons based on advanced physics that took centuries to develop. They laughed at the human obsession with simple kinetic weapons, guns that threw metal at high speeds. So basic, so crude. They did not understand what humans had done with those crude weapons. The railguns of the Terran Navy could accelerate a metal slug to a significant fraction of the speed of light. Each shot carried more energy than a nuclear bomb. And unlike plasma weapons, they did not disperse over distance. They did not weaken against shields, designed to stop energy weapons. They just punched through everything in their path. The first salvo hit the nearest Rethkari ship. The shields flickered once, then failed completely. The hull cracked open like an egg. Atmosphere vented into space along with dozens of screaming crew members. The second salvo struck the ship's engineering section. The reactor went critical. The vessel disappeared in a flash of nuclear fire. "One down," reported the weapons officer. "Keep firing." The Terran fleet moved through the Rethkari formation like wolves through sheep. The battle cruisers methodically destroyed the larger ships. The destroyers hunted down the smaller ones that tried to flee. There was no elegance to it, no drama, just professional soldiers doing a job they had trained their whole lives to perform. In 8 minutes, it was over. 8 Rethkari vessels had been destroyed by the main fleet. The remaining 4 had scattered, trying to reach FTL distance. The destroyer squadrons ran them down one by one. No one escaped. Commander Zethkar was on the last ship. He had ordered maximum speed, maximum power to engines. He had screamed at his crew to go faster. It was not enough that the TNS Wolfpack found him. A pack of 4 destroyers, working together with perfect coordination. They disabled his engines first, then his weapons. Then they simply waited as his ship drifted, helpless. Zethkar watched the human destroyers circle his crippled vessel. He opened a communication channel. "I surrender," he said. "I surrender, please." There was a long silence. Then a human voice replied. "Do you remember the transmission from Nova Hope, Commander? The one that asked for help?" Zethkar said nothing. The woman in that transmission begged for mercy. She told you there were children in danger. Do you remember what you did? I was just following orders. The slaves, you laughed. Your crews laughed. You burned their homes, and you laughed. The communication channel went silent. The destroyers opened fire. On the bridge of the Retribution, Admiral Morrison received a final report. All hostile vessels destroyed, Admiral. No survivors. He nodded slowly. Get me Director Chun. The connection took a moment. The colony's communication systems were badly damaged. But then a face appeared on screen. Exhausted. Bloody. Alive. This is Director Chun. Who is this? Director. This is Admiral James Morrison, Terran Navy. The cavalry has arrived. We're deploying rescue teams now. Your people are safe. Sarah Chun stared at the screen. Behind her, Morrison could hear voices. Some were crying. Some were laughing. Some were just making sounds of pure relief. How? She whispered. We thought no one was coming. The conclave ignored us. Morrison smiled. For the first time in 18 hours, there was warmth in his eyes. We're human, Director. We don't leave our people behind. Not ever. On the surface of Nova Hope, the bunker doors opened. Children stumbled out into the daylight, blinking at the sky. Above them, Terran shuttles were descending with food, medicine, and soldiers to keep them safe. Little Emma. Morrison looked up at the ships and squeezed her brother's hand. I told you, she whispered. I told you someone would come. 3 weeks had passed since the Battle of Nova Hope. 3 weeks since the Terran Navy had appeared from nowhere and destroyed the Rethkari raiders in minutes. 3 weeks since the galaxy had learned that everything they believed about humans was wrong. The conclave of enlightened species had called an emergency meeting. The Great Hall of Serenity's Grace was more crowded than it had ever been. Every species, every delegation, every ambassador and diplomat who could find passage had come. They had all seen the footage. The massive human warships. The impossible weapons. The complete destruction of the Rethkari fleet. And they were afraid. Ambassador Vethrul stood at her usual place at the center of the chamber. But she did not stand as tall as before. Her 4 delicate arms trembled slightly. Her voice, when she spoke, lacked its usual confidence. We must discuss the human situation calmly, she said. Yes, they have revealed unexpected military capabilities. But surely diplomatic channels can. Diplomatic channels? Trade Minister Gorvax interrupted. His mandibles clicked nervously. Ambassador, do you understand what we have learned? Our intelligence services have been working constantly since the battle. The ships we saw were not the full human fleet. Our best estimate says they have over 500 warships. Gasps echoed through the chamber. 500? Someone called out. That's larger than most conclave members' combined forces. And they built them in secret, the Valeth delegate added, wobbling with agitation. Right under our sensors. For decades. They let us believe they were weak while they prepared for war. Can you blame them? The voice was quiet but strong. Everyone turned to look at the speaker. She was a Morvith, an old species that looked like a bear standing on 2 legs. The Morvith were known for their wisdom. They were one of the founding members of the Conclave. We have treated humans with contempt since the day they achieved spaceflight, the Morvith ambassador said. We called them primitives. We limited their expansion. We denied them technology and fair trade. We mocked their biology and called them Deathworlders as an insult. She rose slowly from her seat. Her ancient joints creaked, but her eyes were sharp. And when their people were dying, when children were being taken by slavers, we laughed at their pleas for help. We decided they were not worth saving. The chamber was silent. Humans have a saying, she continued. The wolf does not perform for sheep. We have been treating them like livestock for 60 years. We have just discovered they are wolves. What do they want? Someone asked fearfully. Why don't we ask them? The Morvith ambassador gestured toward the main doors. They're here. Every head turned. The great doors opened. Admiral James Morrison walked in alone. He wore his dress uniform with medals gleaming on his chest. No guards followed him. No weapons were visible on his body. Just an old man with gray hair and cold eyes. He walked to the center of the chamber. Every step echoed in the silence. Hundreds of alien eyes watched him, and he met their gazes without flinching. Distinguished representatives, Morrison said. His voice was calm, polite even. I was told you wanted to discuss recent events. Ambassador Vethril tried to find her voice. Admiral Morrison, I'm sure you understand. The Conclave has rules. We cannot simply send fleets to help every colony that... You laughed. 2 words. Vethril stopped speaking. Our people were dying. Children were being taken by slavers. Director Chan sent a message begging for help. And this chamber, this gathering of the most enlightened species in the galaxy, laughed. Morrison began to walk slowly around the chamber. Delegates moved away from him as he passed. Do you know why you call us Deathworlders? He asked. Because our planet is dangerous. Earth is earthquakes that level cities. Hurricanes that flatten entire coastlines. Predators that hunt humans as prey. Diseases that have killed hundreds of millions of us. He stopped, turning to face the assembly. Earth tried to kill us every day of our existence. So we learned to fight. We learned to survive. We learned to protect each other, because on a world like ours, no one survives alone. His eyes swept across the chamber. The Conclave built a civilization based on the idea that advanced species help each other. Beautiful words. Noble principles. But when humans needed help, you decided we weren't advanced enough. Not civilized enough. Not worth the effort. Admiral Morrison smiled. There was no warmth in it. You taught us something valuable. You showed us that your civilization will watch children die and call it policy. You proved that when times are hard, your enlightened species will abandon those who need help most. You showed us exactly what you are. What happens now? Vethril asked. She could not help herself. Morrison looked at her for a long moment. Nothing. We have no interest in war. We don't want to conquer your worlds or take your resources. We want only to be left alone to live our lives and protect our people. He paused. But we will remember this day. We will remember who laughed while our children burned. And we will never, ever forget. He turned toward the door, then stopped. If anyone ever threatens human lives again, any colony, any station, any ship, you won't be dealing with diplomats begging for help. You'll be dealing with the Deathworlders. With the wolves. His voice dropped lower. And wolves don't show mercy to those who prey on their pack. He walked out. The doors closed behind him. The chamber remained silent for a very long time. 6 months later, Nova Hope had been rebuilt. New buildings rose where the old ones had burned. New families came to replace those who had left. Children played in newly planted gardens under a peaceful sky. At the center of the settlement stood a monument. It was a simple stone pillar with names carved into its surface. 43 names. The defenders who had given their lives holding the line. Below the names were 3 words. They held the door. Director Sarah Chen visited the monument every morning. One day, she found Admiral Morrison standing there. He had come for the official memorial ceremony, but had arrived early. You're up early, Admiral. Old habit. He studied the names. What your people did here, it was extraordinary. They were just farmers and scientists. They were human. Morrison turned to face her. That's what the galaxy never understood. They looked at Earth and saw danger. They looked at our history and saw violence. They never saw what we really are, And what's that? The Admiral watched the colony's children playing nearby. We're the species that runs into burning buildings to save strangers, that jumps into freezing water to rescue people we've never met, that throws ourselves on grenades to protect our friends. Our world taught us to fight, but it also taught us something more important. He smiled, and this time there was warmth in it. It taught us that some things are worth dying for. Family, home, the people we love. The Conclave calls that primitive. I call it human. Director Chun looked at the monument, at the names of the heroes who'd given everything. Do you think they'll ever understand? Maybe. Someday. Morrison shrugged. Until then, we'll keep watching out for our own. It's what we do. He shook her hand and walked away toward his shuttle. Above Nova Hope, Terran patrol ships maintained their silent watch. The Deathworlders had come for their people. They always would.